Very good evening to all. I welcome all of you on my channel, which is GK Millennium 20. Today, I'm here to discuss about downfall on the tourism industry, how I have evaluated the scenario, what was the scenario, and how the simulations model helped me to get the insight of how the COVID has affected the industry. So welcome you all on the downfall of tourism industry due to COVID-19. As tourism industry is a very large and a fastest industry among other industries, and by using system modeling simulation, hereby today we will see that how not only COVID-19, but how lockdown has taken its part or its role on making the downfall of tourism industry. So let's go on the objective. So basically today's objective is to measure the impact of COVID-19 and lockdown 20 on tourism industry. And we will see that how lockdown 20 has helped in controlling the pandemic. Second, to better understand the inside of downfall of tourism industry, we will be using some different types of simulations so that we could get a closer picture to simulate the scenario and to come up with the new systems for the tourism industry for its better economic recovery. And third, we're going to introduce today some new processes and standards according to a simulation student, which I have been working on so that I could get a sufficient result for airlines industry, hotel industry, and the restaurant industry, which are the three pillars of tourism industry. And we'll also see that how we can make this all industries a more safe and secure mode of entertainment as it used to be before the COVID. So on this slide, you can see that we've gone through the objectives, and you can easily see that with the pictorial representation that airlines, hotels, food services, industries had gone to a closure. If I talk about the literature view, tourism industry has played a vital role because it contributes significantly to the GDP of developing and development economies of various countries. It is the largest and the fastest growing industry among other industries globally. Not only because it earns a lot, but it also invests on many factors. But according to the COVID-19, which was declared as a pandemic by World Health Organization on 12th March 2020, signifies that the impact of COVID on the tourism industry has affected the economic, political, social, cultural system and aroused health communication strategies and measures. For example, maybe social distancing, which we all are going through. Travels and mobility has been banned. It has not only affected the tourism life, but it's also have affected the normal life of the beings. Today, some of you are at a stay at home campaign. Following it, some of them are self or mandatorily quarantining themselves, which have hindered the global travel, tourism, and leisure. So as you can see that there are two graphs in which the first graph shows that how the airlines closure, restaurant closures, and hotel industry closures had effect among 43 countries. So from the graphs, we will easily see that there are many countries like Australia, Spain, Italy, China, Japan, which have an increased rate of closures or downfalls, or you can say a decline in their respective airlines, restaurant, and hotel industries. On the other side, you can see that from analysis of the data which I have taken from World Bank data, I have concluded that from March, the airlines industry, which was on 64.6% of profit, just fell down to 26% in April. And till July, it is on 14.6% because of the closure of the international borders. If I talk about the food services here, like restaurant industries, it was on 86% in March, but it significantly declined to 38% in July. And if I talk about the hotel industry, where whenever we go for a journey, we always get to a stay, it was on 52% in March, but on July, it came to 18%. And on the other hand, if you will see that, it's only the currency exchange, that means the dollar rate has been increased from 52 to 56 till July 2020. So if I conclude that there are three industries which go to a downfall, and that is the airlines, food industry, food services, and hotel industry, but there was an increase in dollar or currency exchange rate on a monthly basis due to COVID. And the effect was quite high in April and May month, but it was medium in June and July because we still have some domestic tourists to overcome the loss we have generated from the COVID. Moving apart, there are three graphs which have been shown. The first graph shows that the percentage of decline in airlines industry from January to July month among various countries, where you can see that the US, India, Russia, China, Malaysia, Italy have gone through a large and a tremendous downfall in airlines. If I talk about the food industry, which is the second graph in orange, shows that there are countries like Mexico, US, China, Singapore, Italy, which have gone through a downfall in food industries, maybe in restaurants. And if I talk about restaurant, then it's food services also, which have taken through. And the last is the hotel industry, which have gone through a downfall, maybe, and that are in Russia, China, India, France, etc. So from this graph, it shows that the COVID-19 has very adversely affected the three main pillars of tourism, which concluded to a downfall in the tourism industry. So today, we will simulate these criteria from four main simulations, which is discrete event simulation by Arena. The second is the system dynamic simulation from Vensim, by agent-based simulation from NetLogo, and from Monte Carlo simulation by Excel. So if I talk about these four simulations, these are very effective tools. Let me introduce some of them, how they work and what are these. So discrete event simulation is basically a model that operates off a system on a sequence of events in time. And whenever each event occurs at a particular instant of time, there makes a change in the state of a system also. So in upcoming slides, we're gonna be making some new process maps with safety standards for airlines, hotels, and restaurant industry with the help of Arena. The second comes is the system dynamic simulation. So it's basically a modeling technique to frame, understand, and discuss about the complex issues and processes. So here we'll use Vensim as a software where we'll see that how input affects the output and by how increasing and decreasing in the input can adversely affect the output parameters. Third comes the agent-based simulation, which is again a modeling technique and is used for simulating the actions and interactions of different agents with a view to assess the effects on the system as a whole. So here we'll see about how lockdown 20 and COVID-19 had led to a downfall in the tourism industry with the help of NetLogo software. And last is the Monte Carlo simulation, which is basically a very good technique in which broad class of computational algorithm that is used, which rely on repeated random samplings to obtain numerical values. So here Monte Carlo will be using to get out the desired results by changing some random input parameters. And for this, we'll use the Microsoft Excel software. So before going to any of the simulation, it's very important that we should come with a conceptual modeling element and we should have a conceptual design. So here on the screen, you can see that we have some experimental factors which gonna be determined with under the scope and the objectives of the tourism industry to get an output in the response so that we could determine them and we could answer some of the few questions like what will we do for economic recovery? Why are people laid off employment? What is the recovery plan for the tourism industry? What are the factors which could determine the downfall for tourism industry? And basically who is responsible for decline in the tourism from COVID-19? So here comes the first simulation, which is called agent-based simulation. So in agent-based simulation, you can see that in the downfall of tourism industry, which is the first picture on the left, it shows that with the tourism industry, there are a lot of agents which have been associated like tourism industry ministry agents, customer agents, hotel agent, health ministry, market analysis team agents, various state level tourism committee agents. All these agents have an attribute, and these, if I talk about taking the customer agent, so I will talk about the attributes of the agent will be maybe medical reports, maybe passport, maybe visa, public transports, checklist for the tourists, hospitals, hotel staffs, restaurant staffs. Coming on the third picture on the right, actions of the agent. The action of customer agent will be changing the modes of transport of flights whenever they go for a journey. We usually travel, we usually do shoppings, packaging the luggage, eating, accommodating, navigating by mobile phones, the very good places to explore, currency exchanges. And out of three, we come with the fourth one, that is the agent relationship. So basically the agent relationship in customer agent could be getting tourist visa, hiring guides or packages, tourist packages, getting taxis, booking done earlier, collecting document verifications, exploring for best restaurants, exchanging currency at currency market. But all of these functions come at a last step, which is called the agent status. So because of the COVID, now the agent status, which was the customer agent, had reduced due to the self-isolation and lockdown. There has been increase in the prices of the food and restaurant industry. So it has limitized to only essential purchasing or maybe the essential fundings with some of us. There is a fear of social stigma still, and there is no vaccine till yet. So definitely there is a less outing in terms of the tourist, and there has been a business failure and market closure because of the COVID and because of the lockdown, which extended due to increase in the spread of the COVID. So to simulate this, the first thing which have is the case diagram, in which you can see that there are three customers which has been actors, I would say, which has been used, like travelers, customers, airline industry, food industry, hotel industries, and there is a tourism industry, which is also known as UNWTO, World Tourism Organization, in which you can see that the traveling, shopping, eating, and exchanging currency is some of the activities which are done by the travelers or the customers. And there are some, if I talk about COVID, now if the lockdown opens very soon and international borders opens, so there must be some good solutions for the pandemic problem, which is, and for this, the airplane industry, food industry, and hotel industry is responsible. They should check for that. There should be some preventive measures, and new checklist modification should be there, which is acted by the actors, again by airplane industries, food industry, and to maintain tourism a best mode of entertainment with safety and customer satisfaction. It is the duty of tourism industry, that is the World Trade or the World Tourism Organization, to step up in each and every process, from starting from the traveling till the repair or maintenance, which they need to have to do on the basis of safety, hygiene, recovery parameters. The second is the class diagram. In class diagram, it has been shown that how the tourism industry is dependent on the customer. And if you can see the arrows, the first arrow shows that how the airline industry is interdependent on tourism industry, or you can say that maybe the tourism industry is dependent on the dependent with the airlines industry, and how the hotel industry is dependent on the airlines, how food industry is dependent on tourism industry, which was earlier the scenario which we all have maybe observed earlier also. But now, if I come to the second most diagram at the last, here it summarizes that the downfall in the tourism industry has a lot of reasons, and there are some services which have been affected for this. So to basically maintain this, UNWTO have to invest on tourism, on the safety measures. They have to come up with some solutions for pandemic problems, and for modification of checklists is required, so that the processes should be going perfectly and effective output could become, so that we could control the spread of COVID as soon as possible, because the customer is both dependent on tourism as well as on the checklist or the processes which will be newly introduced by UNWTO. Here comes the NetLogo software, which I discussed earlier, which we use for agent-based emulation. So here you can see that how by increasing in the percentage of COVID, the lockdown percentage has been increases, and which not only control, which definitely has, I would say, declined the tourism industry. So by evaluating it on various random numbers, we can say that by increasing the COVID percentage and by increasing the lockdown extensions, definitely I would say that the results will be shown on the next slide, that the lockdown has definitely controlled the COVID-19 spread, but not have stopped it. It has just controlled or reduced it. But on the other hand, it didn't prove as an opportunity, because it just lost the tourism growth rate. So the conclusion is that lockdown came as an opportunity for COVID-19, but it didn't came as an opportunity for the tourism industry, so that to be retained. In the next diagram, agents-based simulations, as a simulation student, I have simulated many sequences, I would say, processes. So if I talk about the airport authority, now this time, how the customer will uh, get to a final flight with the airlines in consideration to the new safety parameters. So if I talk about in the customer, first as the customer check in the airport for traveling, the airport authority will require some documents and a medical report for verifications. Then they will also ask the customer to go for a COVID test with the infrared thermometer, which will be indicating the body temperature of the customer at that point of time. So if the results come to be abnormal, so the customer will be called for an emergency and will be asked to exit the point from the airport, and the airlines will be informed simultaneously, which is being shown by a red arrow from airport authority to airline staff. And if the COVID-19 results come to be negative, so the customer will be fruitfully be called to enter the airport check-in area for the luggage submission and for boarding. So after when the luggage submission and the boarding has been done, a final security additional checkout will be done, in which there will be a checkout, identification checkout, and even the COVID checkout, so that at that stage of time, if the customer passes through a COVID positive result, he may be stopped at the airport authority and will not be able to enter the airlines. So again, a safety parameter is being advancedly used at this stage. Similarly, if I talk about the hotel industry, as the same scenario comes in with the customer, like how he, as he enters the hotel industry, so first of all, he will be asked for a COVID checkup and medical documents will be required. So if both the cases get into a normal, so he will be allowed or will be allocated with a room. But if any of the cases comes with abnormal results, will definitely cause the hotel industry to ask the customer for an exit. And if I come to the restaurant industries, so in restaurant industries, same as the customer comes at a check-in point, at a check-in gate in the restaurant, he will be asked for a COVID test at that time. So if the COVID comes positive, he will be asked for an exit. But if the COVID result comes to be negative, that means it comes to be normal, he will be allocated with a table. So all these scenarios make us realize that the safety standards will be implemented at every stage, so that there could be a secure and a safe mode of entertainment, or you can say a safe and mode of stay will be there in hotels while flying through the airport, through different airlines, and in the food industry itself. Second comes is the system dynamic simulation, where we have used the stock flow diagram, in which you can see that how the input parameters are being used to evaluate the output parameters, or you can say that how input parameters are dependent on the output parameters, or how input are making a relevant relationship with the output parameters. So there was a downfall of tourism industry. So you can see in the input parameters for downfall is maybe fear of social stigma is still there, spread of COVID is still going on, it's somehow increasing, or it's somehow getting reduced, but not at that level that it could be easy for everyone to be coming out safely. Closure of international borders because in the input parameters, no vaccine till yet, so that can be an input parameter for downfall, and lockdown rule, which was implemented by government and still being implemented at some areas as an input. But what about the output? The output has been adversely affected, as the factors which came out from as an output are: there is a decline in air and airline industry, in restaurant, hotel industry, only pickups and delivery options are available. Many of them have gone through a jobless scenario where laid off and unemployment has came through. There is a decrease in the economic recovery, which is a major factor for the upcoming months or maybe in upcoming years to recover. But if you see the cost loop diagram, we can easily see that having these negative factors, which I explained earlier, we have some positive factors. And what are these? Are basically, due to spread of COVID-19, we came through self-isolation and health measures and upcoming fitness. Everybody today in today's scenario is keeping themselves fit with lots of food and stuff. And to control the spread of COVID-19, we were able to have a lockdown, which have adversely reduced, I would say with a very high percentage, it has reduced the spread of COVID-19 in some countries. No gathering was a very good option, which helped us to control the fear of social stigma. And the last is closure of international borders have definitely reduced the massive percentage which could have affected if the international borders would not have been, I would say, if it not have been closed. If it would be open, it would adversely affect the whole globe at a high percentage. So by simulating this through a Venn diagram, we can easily see on the slide that by increasing the input factors thrice, we have changes in the following graphs. In the first one, as I increase the input factor, the output increase as a downfall tourism downfall reflected at a very high percentage. And as I decreased the input, there again came a decrease in the output factors, where you can see that a stabilization is being made in the second graph. But again, as the scenario today is increase, definitely some of things are again increasing, and you can see that with some areas the lockdown and COVID-19 is being increased simultaneously in graph 3. Third comes in the discrete event simulation, which we talked earlier for the process mapping, and which we have used Arena. So here we have process map for airline industries, for hotel industries, and for restaurant industry. So here comes, we have used simulation type as discrete event simulation. We have used new safety, for events, if I talk about, we have used new safety standards for airline industry, which we'll be discussing in the upcoming slides, and in this slide also. New safety standards for hotel industry and new safety standards for food industry also. The attributes which we'll be using is here the COVID-19 test at 2 stages, availability of medical reports, and to count the number of customers on fly and number of people which got infected and was called for an exit. So activities which we'll be describing here is in the process map as follows. As the customer enters the airport industry, he will be called for a COVID checkout, and if the results come to be positive, he will be called for an exit. And second thing, if the customer calls to be negative, the customer will be allowed to enter the airport ambience, and at that time, the medical reports which is used and to check the history of the patient will be inquired. If there is availability of medical report with the customer, he will be allowed to go for the third procedure, or if he doesn't have at that time, he will call to an exit point. After the luggage submission and after getting the boarding pass, the third additional security check will be there, where a final proper COVID-19 identification test will be done, and the customer will allow and will be moved to a sanitization room where he will be sanitized from head to toe. So at that time, if the result comes to be positive with a particular patient, he will be immediately called for an exit. And if the customer comes to be negative, he will be allowed to fly with the airlines and to enjoy the flight and to have a safe flight. So this process map, which I have told earlier, or shown earlier, is being represented or is being created in Arena software, where you can see that out of 500 customers, when we simulated that, 435 customers were able to fly and 63 customers were given an exit because of the 3-stage check and the 3-stage COVID checking or maybe safety standards. So by evaluating this for 20 times, the replicant for 20 times, we can see in the graph that the flight count increased and the exit count decreased. So here I'm going to include one thing more, that it's not the processes which I have made or which I have simulated through is not going to decrease the COVID-19 spread, but will also increase the retention of the customers, because to increase the economic recovery, we need more and more customers to be retained for under the tourism for a better or effective output. So same comes for the hotel scenario. Also, you can see that out of 100 people, 54 people were allotted with a room, and 44 people were were called for an exit. And as the applications were done for this, the blue line graph, which is shown in the result of hotel industry, states that the room allocated was 93 when the 20th time it was run, and 6 people were made to exit with the orange line, which is called under the result of hotel industry. Third comes is the for the restaurant industry. If I talk about, and with the 50 people, when we were simulating it, we came to through a result that 27 people were allotted a table and 23 people were called for an exit. So by using these safety standards, we were uh, we can make out that yes, by replicating it for several times, we can achieve both our main objectives, that are increase in the retention of the customers for economic recovery, and simultaneously follow the safety and standards uh, which are being used or which have been developed for the restaurant industry by us. Fourth comes the Monte Carlo simulation, where we have used input as a number of customers, as a passenger arrival rate at airport for the airport, and we have used many parameters, safety standards like COVID-19 checking status, medical reports availability, and additional checkouts. So one thing which we have been showing in this graph is that in the COVID-19 graph, as we increase the safety parameters, there is an increase in the flyout amount. And by increasing the parameters in medical report available, I'm checking the medical report, there is an increase in the fly account. So the result is that from Monte Carlo, we came to know that, so as we increase the safety parameters, so that means the more we value them, the more we'll get the fly count. That means the more we'll get a retention on the customers in coming back to the normal tourism industry, and we're going to follow the safety standards with it. Again, we can see that with the earlier we saw about the airport industry, but now we'll saw for the hotel industry, in which we have seen that with increase in the standards with the hotel, we can see that under COVID tests and medical tests, we were able that by many replications, we were able to give a larger number or increase in the number of the room allotted, but we decrease in the exit count. Last is the restaurant industry, where we can see that yes, with the restaurant industry, by following the safety standards, we were able to table in or dining in a larger amount of customers with safety and security, which is the main goal of this simulation. So the final result, if I would talk about or we discuss, is that the occurrence of the coronavirus and the lockdown has significantly impacted the globe, and the global tourists have, and because of this, the global tourist has canceled their programs to visit, or the tourists have been banned to visit overseas. And this fear has not impacted the tourism domestically, but internationally, it has put a lot of decline in various or several industries like airlines industry, hotel and restaurant industry. And because of it, the economy has adversely affected to a larger extent. So therefore, by using this simulation and modeling concept, I was really helpful to see the insight that what are the causes which were responsible, and what are the percentage of the causes which were responsible for making the outputs to decline, and for the decline of the tourism industry as well. So thank you guys for watching my presentation on downfall of tourism industry. And these are the references which have been used for making the PowerPoint presentation and to work on this project. And do like, share, comment, and subscribe my channel, which is